meditate on the Divine Lord and pray for the well-being of the whole humanity. Shanti Hari Om Tat Sat. Om Stavakaya Chadharmasya Sarvadharma Swarupine Stavakaya Chadharmasya Sarvadharma Swarupine Avatara Varishtaya Ramakrishna Te Namah. Asato ma sadgamaya tamaso ma jyotirgamaya mrityorma mritangamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Let us bow down to Sri Ramakrishna, the embodiment of all religions, the Supreme God incarnate. Let us pray to Him to lead us from the unreal to the real, to lead us from the darkness of ignorance to the light of knowledge, to lead us from death to immortality. We have been studying Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. Today's topic, which is very important for spiritual aspirants. As one thinks, so one becomes. So everything is in the way of thinking. How do we think? We have got every power in us. Each individual has tremendous power. One can become anything he wants to. Everything lies in him. Sri Ramakrishna says in the Gospel, as one thinks, so one receives. It is said in the Bhagavad Gita also that whatever one thinks in the hour of death, one becomes in the afterlife. King Bharat gave up his body, exclaiming, "Dear, dear." He was so much attached to the animal deer which grew in his hermitage. So, when the soul left the body, he was thinking of deer. As a result, he was born as a deer in his next life. That means you may be a human being in this life. It does not mean you will be born as a human being in your next life. There is no certainty. It depends upon the resultant force of what you think. So, you must be very careful in your thinking process. If a person dies thinking of God, thinking of spiritual idea, then he attains God and he doesn't have to come back to the life of this world. He doesn't have to pass through bondage and suffering. Sri Ramakrishna has said this, so it is very clear how important it would be to think properly. In another place, Sri Ramakrishna says in the Gospel, man becomes pure by repeating the name of God. Therefore, one should practice the chanting of God's name. Sri Ramakrishna says, he said to Jadu Mallik's mother, Jadu Mallik was one of the devotees, disciples of Sri Ramakrishna. In the hour of death, Sri Ramakrishna said to the disciple's mother, in the hour of death, you will think only of worldly things, of family, children, executing the will and so forth. The thought of God will not come to your mind because your mind is preoccupied with these things. The way to remain God in the hour of death is to practice now the repetition of the divine name and the chanting of his glories. If one keeps up this practice, then in the hour of death, one will repeat the name of God. When the cat pounces upon the bird only squawks and doesn't say Rama, Rama. It is good to prepare for death. One should constantly think of God and chant His name in solitude during the last years of one's life. When you are approaching the evening of your life, you must consciously prepare yourself to think of God so that you will have a good birth in the next life. If the elephant is put into the stable after its bath, it is not soiled again by dirt and dust. So, the power of thought is very powerful. Swami Vivekananda, the foremost disciple of Sri Ramakrishna, he said in one of his talks, we are what our thoughts have made us. So, take care of what you think. Thoughts live, they travel far. Each thought we think is tinged with our own character, so that for the pure and holy man, even his jests or abuse will have the twist of his own love and purity and do good. Evil thoughts looked at materially are the disease bacilli. We are heirs to all the good thoughts of the universe if we open ourselves to them. Thought is the motion of the mind, And when that ceases, death begins. As one thinks, so one becomes. He alone, who is always awake to the idea of freedom, becomes free. He who thinks is bound endures life after life in the state of bondage. It is a fact. This truth holds good both in spiritual and temporal matters. Again, Swami Vivekananda once said, bring the mind to bear on all your actions, and they will be transformed by the power of thought. If matter is powerful, thought is omnipotent. For the mind is like a bright searchlight of infinite power, illuminating everything in its path. There is no limit to its scope. Everyone has the tremendous spiritual potency in the mind. In order to harness that power, we must first ask ourselves, what are thoughts? They are not exactly matter, for you can't touch them or weigh them. Yet, they exert a tremendous power over our life. Like a comet, they stream across our awareness. But we can't see where they arise from or where they disappear to. They keep coming and going. Everyone says, oh Swamiji, so many thoughts come to my mind. I can't meditate, I can't concentrate. Like that people keep on telling. Philosophers in the East and West have considered the nature and power of thought. They have arrived at some conclusions. One of the philosophers has said that the mind can make heaven of hell and hell of heaven. Another philosopher, a mathematician and philosopher, he identified mind with existence in his famous maxim, I think, therefore I am. I think, therefore I am. He had a vision of the universe as a vast mathematical entity which was to be understood through logic. He proposed a dualism between mind and matter, the individual and the universe. Another philosopher said that man has will and self-awareness, and these are higher than thought. In Swami Vivekananda's words, both matter and mind are not really nothing but forces. Matter and mind are really nothing but forces. Mind and matter are the same substance but at different degrees of vibration. Mind and matter are interchangeable, for thought force becomes nerve or muscular force and vice versa. Nature is all this force, whether expressed as matter or mind. Swami Vivekananda said further that which manifests as consciousness is the same as that which manifests as mind and matter. But far from swallowing the conscious human being in a materialistic universe, He saw the universe as consciousness at a different degree of vibration. As matter is ruled by laws, so is mind. The study of these laws is Raja Yoga, the science of psychology, the science of sciences. The first is that the mind takes the nature of the thoughts it holds. That's very important thing that we should note. The first law is that the mind takes the nature of the thoughts it holds. Sri Ramakrishna compared the mind to a white cloth. It takes the color you dye it with. If you dip it into red dye, it will be red. If you dip it in green, it becomes green. The consequence of this is that we are what our thoughts have made us. So take care of what you think. Each thought is a little hammer blow on the lump of iron which our bodies are, manufacturing out of it what we want it to be. It is the blows of repeated thoughts that forge and shape our character. Such is the power of thought. As Swami Vivekananda says, the mind uncontrolled will drag us down, and the mind guided will save us, free us. This also has been the message of all the great teachers. Lord Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita has said, raise yourself by yourself. Don't let yourself down, for you are your own friend. You are your own enemy. Later, Lord Buddha taught, let the wise man guard his thought, for well-guarded thought is the bearer of happiness. We lose our peace of mind and happiness because of unhealthy patterns of thinking. Anxiety and worry have become the norm. Particularly you find in modern times, people are full of anxieties, stress and strain. Anyway, anxiety is not a modern problem. Long ago, Lord Christ taught, be not anxious for the morrow. Behold the lilies, how they neither toil nor spin. Yet King Solomon, arrayed in all his splendor, cannot equal their majesty. Coming to the second law of the mind, it is that we see the world as our mind is set. The 9th century philosopher and saint Shankaracharya describes the different reactions to the stump of a tree as seen in twilight. A child who has just heard ghost stories thinks it's a ghost. A young man thinks it is his sweetheart. And a thief thinks it is a policeman. So, the stump of a tree is interpreted in different ways by different people. That is, the subjective nature of perception is also a physiological fact. We are often told that the eye functions as a camera, but it would be more accurate to compare it to a TV screen in which the image is assembled as a composite of millions of dots. To make this mass of information intelligible, the signals are then smoothed and refined by the brain based on what it thinks it should be seeing. To put it briefly, we see what we expect to see, and it is the same with the other senses. The subjective nature of perception has enormous consequences for our daily life. It means that we see outside what we have inside. We look at people not as they are, but as our mind is set. The encouraging consequence is that if we see anything inspiring in anyone, that quality must also be in us, at least in seed form. Otherwise, we would not have recognized it in another. Coming to the third law. A third law is that minds act on each other. These are all very important facts we should underscore. What I think affects you, and what you think affects me. As musical instruments which are tuned alike, all minds that have the same tension, so to say, will be equally affected by the same thought and will function in symphony. In Swami Vivekananda's words, every thought projected from every brain goes on pulsating, as it were, until it meets a fit object that will receive it. Any mind which is open to receive some of these impulses will take them immediately. According to Aurobindo, another great philosopher, the mind breathes in and breathes out thoughts as the lungs inhale and exhale air. Thus, we are heirs to all the great positive and uplifting thoughts of the past if we tune our mind to them. Again, Swami Vivekananda says, few understand the power of thought. If a man goes into a cave, shuts himself in, and thinks one really good thought and dies, that thought will penetrate the walls of that cave, vibrate through space, and at last permeate the whole human race. Such is the power of thought. This gives us a new perspective on the concept of service. Swami Vivekananda says, it is thought which is the propelling force in us. Fill the mind with the highest thoughts. Hear them day after day. Think of them month after month. And out of that will come tremendous work. When one's thought is mature, the fit recipients will spontaneously arise. When the lotus of the heart blooms, the bees will come of themselves. So there is one more law, the fourth law, which I will take up on the next Tuesday class. So it is very important how we organize our thinking process. Millions of thoughts keep coming, going. Just as we breathe in air, the mind takes in and gives out thoughts. So be aware of the thoughts that come across your mind. Fill up the mind with the noble thoughts. Fill up the mind with spiritual ideas. Fill up the mind with the divine name of God. By continuously engaging yourself in spiritual ideas, by constantly thinking about the noble ideas and studying the holy scriptures which deal with the truth, then eventually mind becomes very strong spiritually, and then you will try to feel the glory of freedom. You come very close to God. The more near you come to God, the more peace you experience in your heart. So, everything lies in you. Each one should consider himself or herself a very important person. And everyone will have to struggle. First of all, you must have strong aspiration to become free, to get rid of bondage. That should be the central force. Then everything will come accordingly. So, as one thinks, so one reaps. That is the topic which I am dealing today. Next Tuesday also I deal the same subject. Let us try to think pure thoughts consciously. Let us be aware of the effect of the good thoughts. That's why we keep telling the spiritual aspirants to engage in worship, in singing the glories of God, in reading the holy scriptures. By these methods, definitely thoughts can be purified. All the impure thoughts might be replaced by the noble thoughts. Then that will determine your future birth, and that will set everything in proper motion. Page 626. Sri Ramakrishna sharply said to the Brahmo, a devotee of Brahmo Samaj, he said, "What sort of man are you to accept words without conviction? Why? That is hypocrisy. I see you are only a counterfeit." The Brahmo was embarrassed. Sub-judge who was there, he said, "Sir, must we renounce the world?" Sri Ramakrishna said, "No. Why should you? A man can realize God even in the world. But at the beginning, he must spend a few days in solitude. He must practice spiritual discipline in a solitary place. He should take a room near his house so that he may come home only for his meals." Keshav, Pratap and others said to me, "Sir, we follow the ideal of King Janaka. Mere words don't make a King Janaka, I replied. How many austerities King Janaka first had to perform in solitude, standing on his head and so on. Do something first, then you may become a King Janaka. You see, a man writing English fluently, but could he do that at the very start? Perhaps he was the son of poor parents. He was cook in a family and earned his meals by his service. Perhaps he had to struggle hard to go on with his studies. It is after all these efforts that he can now write such fluent English. I said to Keshav Sen further, how can the worldly man be cured of his serious disease unless he goes into solitude? A worldly man is suffering from delirious fever, as it were. Suppose there are pickled tamarind and jars of water in the room of such a patient. Now, how can you expect him to get rid of the disease? Just see, the very mention of pickled tamarind is making my mouth water or laugh. You can very well imagine that what will happen if the tamarind is actually put in front of me. To a man, a woman is the pickled tamarind and his desire for enjoyment, the jars of water. There is neither end nor limit to this desire for worldly enjoyment. And the things are in the patient's very room. Can you expect the patient to get rid of the delirious fever in this fashion? He must be removed for a few days in another place to another place where there are neither pickled tamarind nor water jars. Then he will be cured. After that, if he returns to his old room, he will have nothing to fear. Lust and gold cannot do any harm to the man who lives in the world after attaining God. Only then can he have a detached life in the world as King Janaka did. But he must be careful at the beginning. He must practice the spiritual discipline in strict solitude. The peepal tree, when young, is fenced around to protect it from cattle. But there is no need for the fence when the trunk grows thick and strong. Then no harm will be done to the tree, even if an elephant is tied to it. Lust and gold will not be able to harm you in the least if you go home and lead a householder's life after increasing your spiritual strength and developing love for the lotus feet of God through the practice of spiritual discipline in solitude. A man sets milk in a quiet place to curdle, and then he extracts butter from the curd. After once extracting the butter of devotion and knowledge from the milk of the mind, if you keep that transformed mind in the water of the world, it will float in the world unattached. But if the mind in its unripe state, that is to say, when it is just like liquid milk, is kept in the water of the world, then the milk and water will get mixed. In that case, it will be impossible for the mind to float unattached in the world. Live in the world, but in order to realize God, hold fast to His lotus feet with one hand and with the other do your duties. When you get a respite from your duties, cling to God's lotus feet with both hands, live in solitude and meditate on Him and serve Him ceaselessly. So stop. Any questions to ask? You are welcome to ask any question. No question. Anyway, thinking is very important. How you think day in and day out. That shapes your character. That's the substance of today's topic. Well, we shall stop. Chant the name of the Lord and His glory unceasingly, that the mirror of the heart may be wiped clean, and quench that mighty forest fire, worldly lust, raging furiously within. O name, stream down in moonlight on the lotus heart, opening its cup to knowledge of thyself. O self, drowned deep in the waves of His bliss, tasting His nectar at every step, bathing in His name, that bath for weary souls. Various are thy names, O Lord. In each and every name thy power resides. No times are set, no rites are needful for chanting of thy name. So vast is thy mercy, how huge then is my wretchedness, who find in this empty life and heart no devotion to thy name. O my mind, be humbler than a blade of grass. Be patient and forbearing like a tree. Take no honor to thyself, give honor to all. Chant unceasingly the name of the Lord. O Lord of the soul, O Lord and soul of the universe, mine is no prayer for wealth or retinue, the playthings of lust or the toys of fame. As many times as I may be reborn, grant me, O Lord, a steadfast love for thee. A drowning man in this world's fearful ocean is thy servant, O sweet one. In thy mercy consider him as dust beneath thy feet. Ah, how I long for the day when an instant's separation from thee, O Lord, will be as 1,000 years, when my heart burns away with its desire, and the world without thee is a heartless void. Prostrate at thy feet let me be, in unwavering devotion, neither imploring the embrace of thine arms, nor bewailing the withdrawal of thy presence, though it tears my soul asunder. O thou who stillest the hearts of thy devotees, do with me what thou wilt, for thou art my heart's beloved, and thou alone. O Lord, lead us from the unreal to the real, lead us from darkness to light, and lead us from death to immortality. May all be free from dangers, may all realize what is good, may all be actuated by noble thoughts, may all rejoice everywhere, may all be happy, may all be free from disease, may all realize what is good, may none be subject to misery. May the wicked become virtuous, may the virtuous attain tranquility, may the tranquil be free from bonds, may the freed make others free. May good betide all people, may the sovereign righteously rule the earth, may all beings ever attain what is good, may the worlds be prosperous and happy, may the clouds pour rain in time, may the earth be blessed with crops, may all countries be freed from calamity, may holy men live without fear. May the Lord, the destroyer of sins, the presiding deity of all sacred works, be satisfied. For He being pleased, the whole universe becomes pleased. He being satisfied, the whole universe feels satisfied.